Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying a conversation with someone you love, wondering why it always feels like you're one misunderstanding away from heartbreak? Or maybe you've poured everything into a relationship only to feel like no matter how hard you try, you're never quite seen or understood the way you long to be. Love, the thing we all crave, is also the thing that leaves us most vulnerable, most exposed. But what if the very philosophy that helped ancient warriors face battle with unwavering courage could also teach us how to love with that same unshakable strength? Stoicism, a 2,000-year-old school of thought, isn't just about enduring hardship, it's about transforming how we show up in our closest relationships. And the best part, it's not about suppressing emotions or becoming cold. It's about cultivating a love that's deeper, more resilient, and far more fulfilling than we've been taught to believe possible. Think about the last time jealousy clouded your judgment or fear of losing someone made you cling tighter, only to push them further away. We've all been there. But Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca faced these same human struggles centuries ago, and their insights are shockingly relevant today. What if you could approach love not from a place of lack or desperation, but from a foundation of inner wholeness? What if, instead of demanding perfection from your partner, you could find peace in accepting them and yourself exactly as you are? This isn't about settling, it's about loving with clear eyes and an open heart. The Stoics didn't just theorize about these ideas, they lived them, and their wisdom can help us do the same. That's why we're diving into 25 Stoic principles that will completely redefine the way you love. These aren't abstract concepts, they're practical tools you can use today to build connections that aren't just passionate but enduring. Imagine responding to conflict with calm instead of reactivity, or offering forgiveness before resentment has a chance to take root. Picture loving someone without needing them to complete you, because you've already cultivated a profound sense of worth within yourself. This is the power of Stoicism in relationships, and over the course of this video, you'll discover exactly how to bring these ancient truths into your modern love life. Whether you're single, in a relationship, or somewhere in between, these ideas will meet you where you are and guide you towards something deeper. So let's begin. One of the most freeing realizations Stoicism offers about love comes from Epictetus, who reminds us that love is always a choice, never a necessity. Think about the difference between saying, "I need this person," and "I choose this person." The first places your happiness in someone else's hands, while the second comes from a place of genuine desire, not fear. Ancient Stoics understood that clinging to love as if it were oxygen turns relationships into lifelines rather than partnerships. When we treat love as something we can't live without, we hand over our emotional stability to forces outside our control. But when we see it as a voluntary act, something we actively and consciously offer each day, we reclaim our power to love without losing ourselves. This isn't about detachment or emotional coldness. It's about recognizing that true connection flourishes when two whole people come together, not when two halves try to complete each other. Imagine standing at the edge of a pool, holding hands with someone you care about. If you both choose to jump in together, that's joy. But if you're clinging to them because you're terrified of drowning, that's dependency. Stoicism teaches us to swim first, to cultivate an inner resilience so that love becomes an addition to our happiness, not the sole source of it. Practical. Absolutely, consider how this plays out in everyday moments. When your partner forgets to call, does it spiral into anxiety because you've tied your worth to their attention? Or can you acknowledge the disappointment while still feeling grounded in your own value? Epictetus would argue that the healthiest relationships are built on mutual choice, not mutual need. This shift in perspective doesn't diminish love's intensity. It removes the desperation that often poisons it. You start to love more freely because you're no longer loving from a place of lack. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop treating love as a necessity, you create space for it to grow deeper. Boundaries become clearer, communication more honest, because you're not negotiating from fear. You're no longer saying, "I'll do anything to keep you," but rather, "I'm here because I want to be, and I choose this every day." That's the foundation of a love that endures not because it has to, but because it genuinely wants to. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the key to a peaceful life lies in understanding what is within your power and what isn't. And this single idea might be the most transformative tool for relationships you'll ever encounter. Think about the last argument you had with someone you love. How much of your frustration came from trying to control their reactions, their tone, even their feelings? We waste so much energy demanding others change when the only thing we truly command is our own response. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, the sharp division between what's yours to govern and what isn't. In love, this isn't about giving up or resignation. It's about focusing your effort where it actually makes a difference. Take a simple example. Your partner comes home irritable after a bad day. You might instinctively think if they just snap out of it, things would be fine, but their mood, not yours to control, your reaction to it, entirely yours. This is where Stoicism flips the script. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to fix their emotions, you pour that energy into how you show up, offering patience instead of impatience, curiosity instead of criticism. The moment you stop wrestling with what you can't change, you free up space to respond with intention rather than react out of frustration. This plays out in bigger conflicts too. Imagine discovering your partner forgot an important anniversary. The oversight hurts, and it's valid to feel that, but here's the fork in the road. You can't control their memory or their apology. What you can control is whether you stew in resentment or communicate clearly about what you need moving forward. One path leaves you both stuck, the other opens a door to understanding. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That strength isn't cold or uncaring, it's the foundation of healthier dynamics." This principle also reshapes jealousy. When insecurity whispers they shouldn't have that friendship or they need to reassure me more, Stoicism asks, is this demand serving your peace or starving it? You'll never have authority over another person's connections or attention, but you do have authority over building your own trust and self-assurance. The more you release the illusion of controlling others, the more you'll notice your relationships becoming lighter, less about power struggles and more about genuine connection. The magic here isn't in ignoring pain or pretending things don't matter. It's in redirecting your agency to the only place it's ever been effective, within yourself. Love isn't about scripting someone else's lines, it's about mastering your own performance. And when both people in a relationship take responsibility for their half of that stage, that's where real harmony begins. Amor fati, the love of fate. It's a phrase Nietzsche borrowed from the Stoics, and it might just be the most radical mindset shift you can bring into your relationships. Because here's the truth we often avoid. No partner is perfect, no relationship is without friction, and trying to edit reality to match your fantasies only leads to suffering. But what if, instead of resisting the rough edges of your relationship, you learn to love them, not in a passive, put up with anything way, but with the active recognition that every challenge is a chance to strengthen your patience, deepen your understanding, and refine your capacity to love? Picture this, your partner has a habit that drives you up the wall. Maybe they're chronically late, or they leave dishes in the sink, or they interrupt you mid-sentence. The typical response, frustration, nagging, maybe even silent resentment. But Amor fati flips the script. It asks, how does this irritation serve you? Could their lateness teach you flexibility? Could their interruptions sharpen your ability to listen deeply before responding? This isn't about excusing disrespect, it's about mining every situation for its hidden gifts. The Stoics believed obstacles were the raw materials of wisdom, and nowhere does that apply more powerfully than in love. Consider Seneca's marriage to Paulina. Historical accounts suggest she was strong-willed, even difficult at times, but Seneca didn't frame this as a flaw to endure. He saw it as the very thing that refined his character. Her intensity matched his, creating friction that polished them both. That's amor fati in action, loving what is, not wasting energy lamenting what isn't. When you stop fighting reality, you start seeing the beauty in its imperfections. Your partner's stubbornness isn't just a hurdle, it's a mirror showing you where you still cling to control. Their emotional guardedness isn't just a wall, it's an invitation to practice gentle persistence. This extends to bigger challenges too. Financial stress, differing values, even betrayals. None of these are easy, but amor fati asks, what part of your resilience could only have been forged here? Imagine two people hiking a mountain. One curses every rock and steep incline. The other sees each obstacle as part of the adventure's texture, who enjoys the journey more. Who grows stronger? Relationships are no different. The rough patches aren't detours from the path, they are the path. Now, this doesn't mean tolerating toxicity or abandoning boundaries. Loving fate isn't resignation, it's empowerment. Epictetus made this clear. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it does, and you'll be all right. When your partner's flaws trigger you, that's not a sign they're wrong for you. It's a sign you've been handed a syllabus for your next lesson in love. Maybe their need for space teaches you self-sufficiency. Maybe their emotional outbursts reveal your own fear of conflict. The goal isn't to erase these dynamics, but to engage with them consciously, knowing they're sculpting you into someone capable of deeper connection. Think of a blacksmith shaping steel. The hammer's blows aren't punishment, they're what give the metal its strength and edge. Your relationship's challenges are those same blows, not sent to break you, but to forge you. Amor fati is the decision to stand in that fire and say, yes, even this, because the love that survives reality is infinitely more resilient than the love that only thrives in fantasy. And isn't that the kind of love we're all truly seeking? Every great love story has its moments of tension, those raw, uncomfortable crossroads where most of us instinctively brace for battle or retreat. But what if these very obstacles are secretly the most direct route to the connection we crave? Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who weathered political exile and personal betrayals, offered a counterintuitive truth. Difficulty isn't the enemy of love, it's the architect. Imagine two trees growing side by side. When storms come, their roots don't just survive the wind, they intertwine deeper beneath the soil to withstand it. Relationships work the same way. The friction we fear, that's where the real bonding happens. Take an argument about household chores, something that seems trivial on the surface. One person feels taken for granted, the other feels nagged. The easy path is resentment or avoidance, but Seneca would ask, what if this frustration is highlighting a deeper need for acknowledgement, for teamwork? The obstacle here isn't the dirty dishes, it's the unspoken expectation that your partner should just know what you need. When you lean into that discomfort instead of dismissing it, you create space for honest dialogue. Suddenly, the fight isn't about who empties the dishwasher. It's about how you both express and receive care. That's the alchemy Stoicism teaches, turning leaden conflicts into golden understanding. History remembers Seneca's turbulent relationship with Nero, the emperor who eventually ordered his death. Yet even there, Seneca found purpose in the struggle. He wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Apply that to love. When your partner's emotional baggage surfaces or when trust feels fragile, those aren't signs you're off course, they're the labor that builds relational muscle. A couple avoiding all conflict isn't peaceful, they're untested. But the pair who have navigated betrayal and chosen repair, their love isn't fragile, it's antifragile, strengthened by the very pressures that could have broken it. This mindset shift transforms how you approach recurring issues. Say your partner withdraws when stressed, a pattern that leaves you feeling shut out. The obstacle isn't their withdrawal, it's your shared inability to bridge that gap. Viewed through Seneca's lens, this becomes an invitation. What tools could help us connect even in tension? Maybe you learn to give space without taking it personally. Maybe they learn to signal when they're ready to reconnect. The obstacle didn't vanish, it became the curriculum for a deeper emotional language. Even heartbreak follows this principle. Seneca wrote extensively about loss, reminding us that grief is the price of attachment, but also the proof of love's value. When a relationship ends, the obstacle isn't the pain, it's the resistance to letting that pain teach you. Those who have loved deeply and lost often emerge with a clarity about what they truly need. That's the paradox. The very experiences we label as failed relationships are often the ones that prepare us for the love that lasts. Here's the practical takeaway. Next time you hit a wall with someone you love, pause and ask, what is this moment trying to build in us? Maybe patience, maybe boundaries, maybe vulnerability. The Stoics didn't worship hardship, but they revered what it could produce. Your relationship's toughest moments aren't detours, they're the narrow path leading straight to the kind of love that knows its own strength. And isn't that worth every stumble along the way? There's a Stoic exercise so counterintuitive that it might sound like emotional self-sabotage, until you experience the profound freedom it unlocks. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, imagining the worst-case scenarios in love seems like a recipe for anxiety. Why dwell on heartbreak when you could just enjoy the relationship? But the Stoics weren't pessimists, they were realists. Their goal wasn't to spoil joy, but to inoculate it against the shocks of life. Think of it like this: a sailor doesn't study storms because they want to shipwreck, but because they know the sea is unpredictable. Love is no different. Here's how it works practically. Instead of avoiding thoughts like what if they leave or what if this falls apart, you lean into them, not obsessively but deliberately. You ask yourself, how would I handle this pain if it came? You mentally walk through the steps, the grief, the rebuilding, the rediscovery of yourself. And here's the paradox Seneca observed: by facing these fears head-on, you drain them of their power to ambush you. The breakup you've rehearsed in your mind isn't half as terrifying as the one you've refused to consider. This isn't about expecting failure or doubting your partner. It's about dissolving the illusion that love's value depends on its permanence. Consider how we treat precious glassware, handling it with white-knuckled caution, terrified of cracks. But what if you knew you could survive the shattering? Suddenly, you'd hold it with appreciation, not anxiety. That's the gift of premeditatio malorum. When you've already acknowledged that loss is possible, you stop clinging so tightly that you crush the very connection you're trying to preserve. Modern psychology echoes this ancient wisdom. Studies on stress inoculation show that mentally preparing for adversity reduces its emotional impact. Soldiers train under simulated gunfire, astronauts rehearse emergencies. Why wouldn't we apply the same principle to matters of the heart? The goal isn't to live in fear, but to walk into love with your eyes wide open, knowing that even if it ends, you'll still be whole. Apply this to small moments too. Before a difficult conversation, imagine your partner reacting poorly. Not to assume they will, but to remind yourself, I can handle their frustration. Before expressing a vulnerable need, picture it being dismissed. Not because it will be, but because you'll realize their response doesn't define my worth. This practice strips away the drama of what if, leaving you steady enough to love without desperation. The beauty of this exercise, it doesn't just prepare you for endings, it deepens your presence in the now. When you're not secretly terrified of losing someone, you stop monitoring them for signs of departure. You listen more closely, argue less defensively, and appreciate more fully. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, in that you should stand ready and firm to meet onsets which are sudden and unexpected. Love, with all its unpredictability, demands the same readiness. So try this. Next time you feel that familiar clutch of fear, what if they stop loving me? Don't shove it away. Invite it in. Sit with the scenario until you realize you'd grieve, yes, but you'd also adapt. You'd rediscover old strengths and forge new ones. And with that unshakable knowledge, you can finally love not from a place of lack, but from a place of unshakable abundance. Marcus Aurelius often sat alone at dawn, writing words that would echo across centuries. Remember that all we have is the present moment. The past is gone, the future uncertain. This wasn't morbid reflection, it was his way of sharpening gratitude. Nowhere does this practice cut deeper than in love. We cling to relationships as if they're eternal, and in doing so, we miss the bittersweet truth. Their fragility is precisely what makes them precious. The Stoics understood this paradox intimately. When you stop demanding permanence from love, you start seeing each day with your partner as a gift, one that could be reclaimed at any moment, not by cruelty, but by the natural flow of life. Consider how differently we treat a bouquet of fresh flowers versus a plastic one. The real blooms, precisely because they'll wilt, get placed in clean water, admired daily, their scent savored. The fake ones gather dust on a shelf. Human connections thrive under the same conditions. The knowledge that your time together isn't guaranteed isn't a threat. It's the very thing that compels you to put down your phone during dinner, to listen more intently to their stories, to choose kindness over pettiness. Marcus wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Imagine applying that urgency to love, not as anxiety, but as a clarion call to show up fully. This perspective reshapes even mundane moments. Your partner leaves their socks on the floor again. The old script groans with irritation, but the Stoic refrain whispers, "What if this were the last week you shared a home?" Suddenly, the socks aren't a grievance, they're evidence of their presence, a detail you might one day ache to have back. This isn't about ignoring boundaries or tolerating disrespect. It's about recognizing that most frustrations are trivial against the backdrop of life's brevity. The Japanese have a concept called mono no aware, the poignant awareness of impermanence. It's the reason cherry blossoms hold such cultural weight. Their fleeting bloom makes them sacred. Stoicism asks us to see relationships through the same lens. History offers a striking example in the letters between Marcus and his wife Faustina. Despite the pressures of empire and rumors of her infidelity, his writings reveal a man who cherished her not as a permanent fixture, but as a temporary companion whose absence would leave a hole in the universe. He didn't love her despite impermanence, he loved her because of it. Contrast this with modern relationships where we often take longevity for granted, assuming there'll always be time to mend fences or express appreciation. The Stoic alternative: live as if today might be your last chance to love well because someday it will be. Practical application: start small. Next time you feel annoyed by your partner's quirks, pause and mentally fast forward to a world without them. That laugh that sometimes grates, the way they hum off key in the shower, gone. Notice how your irritation softens into something closer to tenderness. Or try this nightly ritual. As you fall asleep, reflect on one specific moment from the day you'd miss if they were no longer here. The warmth of their hand brushing yours. The way their eyes crinkle when they tease you. These aren't just memories, they're offerings to the altar of now. The temporary nature of love isn't a flaw, it's the furnace that burns away complacency. When you stop demanding forever as the price of admission, you free yourself to love with a presence that most people reserve for farewells. And here's the secret: relationships grounded in this awareness often outlast those built on the shaky fantasy of permanence. Because when two people choose each other anew every day, not out of obligation but conscious gratitude, they're not just passing time, they're defying it. Picture Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, sitting with his wife Faustina at day's end, not just recounting events but dissecting them: what went well, where tensions arose, how to grow. This wasn't mere diary keeping, it was relational alchemy. Stoic journaling, when done as a couple, transforms ink and paper into a mirror that reflects not just individual growth, but the evolving landscape of your connection. Think of it as a shared mental gym where you strengthen emotional muscles together. The ritual is simple but profound. Set aside 10 minutes daily, maybe over morning coffee or before bed, and write responses to 3 prompts. First, what did I learn about myself through our interactions today? Second, where did I act from fear instead of love? Third, what about my partner inspired gratitude or taught me something new? Then swap, no corrections, no defenses, just witness each other's inner worlds. This practice does something remarkable. It slows down the emotional reflexes that fuel conflicts. When your partner writes, "I reacted harshly because I felt dismissed," it lands differently than hearing it in the heat of an argument. There's space to absorb rather than react. Modern psychology calls this metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts, and couples who practice it build what researchers term cognitive interdependence. They stop seeing problems as me versus you and start framing them as us versus the challenge. Now, layer in Stoicism's morning and evening rituals. Mornings might begin with aligned intentions, facing the day not as adversaries but as teammates. One person might say, "Today, I'll practice patience when plans change." The other might add, "And I'll communicate delays before they become frustrations." This isn't about perfection, it's about creating a shared vocabulary for growth. Evenings then become a time for gentle accountability. How did we do on those intentions? Where did we stumble? The key is focusing on efforts, not outcomes. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." In love, that means every misunderstanding isn't a failure, it's raw material for deeper attunement. Consider how this counters modern relationship traps. Social media encourages performative love, showcasing curated moments while avoiding messy growth. Couples journaling rejects that. It's in the mess that gold is found. When one person admits, "I envied your calm during our argument," or "I resented carrying the mental load today," it exposes vulnerabilities that, when shared, become connection points. Seneca wrote letters to his wife Paulina across distances, not just to bridge miles but to cultivate emotional intimacy. Your journal becomes those letters, a record of who you're becoming together. The magic lies in consistency. Like tending a garden, small daily efforts yield harvest you can't rush. Over time, patterns emerge. Maybe one partner's stress surfaces as criticism, or the other's silence masks unspoken needs. These revelations, when documented, become a relational compass. You start spotting triggers before they detonate, offering reassurance before it's asked for. And on tough days, the journal serves as an anchor. Flipping back through entries reminds you both, we've navigated storms before, here's how. This isn't about crafting a flawless love story. It's about writing one that's authentically yours, inked with setbacks, edits, and hard-won wisdom. The Stoics knew that an examined life was the only one worth living. An examined love, then, might just be the only one that lasts. Epictetus once observed that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen twice as much as we speak. But in relationships, how often do we weaponize words, filling silence not with connection but with grievances? His principle, speak only what improves silence, isn't about muting yourself. It's about measuring every word against a simple standard. Will this deepen understanding or just amplify noise? Imagine a couple lying in bed after a long day. One sighs heavily, the instinctive response, "What's wrong?" followed by a barrage of assumptions. Now picture the alternative, quiet presence. A hand resting on theirs, space for them to speak or not. That's the Stoic discipline of speech in action, knowing that often the most powerful thing you can offer isn't your opinion, but your patience. This philosophy flips modern communication on its head. We're taught to express ourselves at all costs, yet rarely consider whether our words are bridges or barricades. Think about the last time you corrected your partner mid-sentence or rehearsed your rebuttal while they were still talking. Epictetus would call this linguistic gluttony, consuming airtime not to nourish the conversation, but to feed your own need to be right. Contrast that with his approach, speaking only when your silence would be less helpful. A disagreement about parenting styles doesn't demand instant counterpoints. It might benefit from "tell me more about why that's important to you." A complaint about household chores could transform with "how can we solve this together?" instead of "you always nag." The ancient Stoics practiced prosauche attention to one's inner discourse because they knew thoughts become words and words shape realities. Apply this to love. Every criticism you voice first echoes in your mind as "they're failing me." Every gratitude you articulate reinforces they're a gift. This isn't positive thinking, it's linguistic stewardship. Your partner forgets an errand. The automatic "you never follow through" breeds resentment. "But I felt stressed when the groceries weren't there." Can we problem solve? Names the emotion without attacking character. Epictetus wasn't advocating suppression, he was teaching precision. Like a sculptor choosing which marble to chip away, relational harmony depends on removing what obscures the beauty beneath. History offers a poignant example in the marriage of Zeno, founder of Stoicism. When his wife grew irritated by his long hours teaching philosophy, he didn't dismiss her or launch into defenses. He listened, then adjusted his schedule without fanfare. His silence in that moment spoke volumes. Your peace matters more than my being right. Modern research validates this. Gottman Institute studies show that happy couples maintain a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. But Stoicism goes deeper. It's not just about quantity, but quality. A single "I appreciate how you handled that" during tension can outweigh a dozen superficial compliments. Practical application. Start with the triple filter test from Socrates, a major Stoic influence. Before speaking, ask, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If it passes all three, say it. If not, let silence do its work. Notice how often you interrupt to add value versus to truly connect. Try a week of listening to understand rather than replying to win. You'll discover what Epictetus knew. The quieter you become, the more you hear not just their words but the unmet needs beneath them. This discipline reshapes conflicts into collaborations. Your partner arrives late again. Instead of "you're so irresponsible," which forces them into defensiveness, try "I notice timing's been tough. What's getting in the way?" The first statement judges, the second invites partnership. Even in heated moments, the Stoic asks, is my goal to punish or to progress? Words that improve silence don't avoid hard truths. They frame them as shared puzzles rather than personal faults. Ultimately, Epictetus' teaching isn't about talking less, it's about loving more deeply through every syllable. Because the right words at the right time don't just fill air, they build the kind of understanding that silence alone can't convey. And in that balance between speaking and listening, between honesty and grace, you'll find the conversations that don't just pass the time, but transcend it. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius about a peculiar kind of heartbreak, not from losing love, but from demanding it behave a certain way. He described a man who adored his wife, yet spent every dinner correcting her table manners, every gathering critiquing her conversation. Over time, she grew timid, then distant, until what remained was a hollow performance of partnership. The tragedy: he killed the very spontaneity he once loved by clinging to an ideal she could never inhabit. This is the paradox Stoicism uncovers. We often strangle love by gripping it too tightly. At first glance, detachment sounds like emotional withdrawal, as if Seneca advises us to love halfway, always braced for loss. But read his letters closer and you'll find something far more liberating, a love that's fully engaged yet lightly held. Picture standing at the ocean's edge, toes in the surf. You can marvel at the waves without demanding they never retreat, or rage when they erode the sand. That's the balance Seneca proposes. Dive deep into love's currents, but resist the folly of trying to freeze them in place. Modern relationships are riddled with unspoken contracts. If I'm a good partner, they'll never disappoint me. If we love enough, we won't argue. These aren't hopes, they're blueprints for resentment. Seneca confronted this by asking, why condition your joy on someone else's perfect alignment with your script? His own marriage to Paulina wasn't without friction. Historical accounts suggest fiery disagreements, yet his writings reveal a man who cherished her as she was, not as he wished her to be. When she fell ill, he didn't bargain with the gods for her recovery. He focused on savoring each day with her. That's the core of loving without attachment, replacing demands with presence. Practical application: start noticing where you've conflated love with control. That text left unanswered for hours, does it spiral into they don't care because you've equated prompt replies with devotion? Or when your partner's career ambitions diverge from your vision, do you frame it as betrayal rather than their authentic growth? Stoicism invites a radical reframe. This person isn't my creation, they're my companion. The less you need them to fit a mold, the more room they have to surprise you. History offers a striking contrast in the tale of Pygmalion, the sculptor who fell for his own statue. That's attachment, love as possession, as admiration of one's own craftsmanship. Seneca's alternative: be the gardener, not the sculptor. Tend to the soil, provide sunlight and water, then let the flower unfold as it will. Some petals may not match your preference, but that's where the beauty begins, in the discovery of what you didn't design. This mindset transforms conflicts. A disagreement about finances stops being "you're wrong" and becomes "let's explore why we see this differently." Your partner's differing social needs aren't rejection. They're reminders that love thrives in the space between two whole people, not in the fusion of one. Even in endings, this philosophy sustains you. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is ours except time, not even those we love." The bittersweet truth: letting go of outcomes doesn't diminish love's intensity. It purifies it, leaving only what's real and what's freely given. So tonight, try this. As your partner shares some habit or opinion that ruffles you, pause. Instead of thinking they should be different, ask, what does this reveal about them or about my own unexamined rules? That slight shift, from judge to curious observer, might just be the key to loving someone fully, without the weight of expectation bending the relationship into something it was never meant to bear. Epictetus once asked his students a simple but piercing question: what if the traits that irritate you most in others are exactly what you need to encounter to grow? Apply that to love, and suddenly every disagreement with your partner isn't a battle to win, it's a classroom where you're both student and teacher. Think about the last time you clashed over something trivial, like whose turn it was to take out the trash. Beneath the surface, what was really being exposed? Maybe your frustration wasn't about the chore at all, but about feeling unseen, or perhaps it revealed your own rigidity around fairness. The Stoics called this process the art of attention, and it turns conflict into curriculum. Consider Seneca's relationship with his fiery wife Paulina. Historical accounts suggest they were opposites in temperament. He, the measured philosopher; she, quick to express emotion. Where others might see incompatibility, Seneca recognized an education. Her intensity mirrored the parts of himself he'd over-disciplined. Her spontaneity became a lesson in surrendering control. This isn't about romanticizing toxicity or staying in unhealthy dynamics. It's about shifting perspective. Your partner's flaws are often the sandpaper smoothing your own rough edges. That time they called you out for being defensive. Annoying in the moment, but later, once pride subsides, you might realize they handed you a mirror showing where you still tie self-worth to being right. Practical application: next time tensions rise, pause and ask two questions. What is this moment trying to reveal about me, and what skill is this friction inviting me to develop? Maybe their forgetfulness teaches you patience. Maybe your reaction to their criticism highlights an old wound needing tenderness. Even in joy, there are lessons. Their ability to stay present might tutor your anxious mind, or their generosity could soften your scarcity mindset. The Stoics believed no encounter was accidental. Every person crossed your path to polish some part of your character. Nowhere does this resonate more powerfully than in intimate relationships. History offers a vivid example in the marriage of Marcus Aurelius and Faustina. Despite rumors of her infidelity, his meditations never descend into bitterness. Instead, he writes, "For my wife, I learned the meaning of resilience." He could have framed her rumored affairs as betrayal, but he chose to see them as lessons in forgiveness and emotional sovereignty. This isn't passive acceptance, it's active reframing. When your partner's actions trigger you, that's the universe pointing to where your growth awaits. Try this exercise. List 3 of your partner's traits that grate on you. Now, for each one, identify the complementary strength it could help you cultivate. Their blunt honesty might feel harsh, but couldn't it also train you to separate your worth from others' opinions? Their need for solitude might trigger abandonment fears, but doesn't it also create space for you to build self-sufficiency? Epictetus put it bluntly, if someone irritates you, it's your own opinion irritating you. In other words, the irritation isn't about them, it's about where you're still tender. This approach doesn't negate boundaries or the need for change. Sometimes the lesson is recognizing when a relationship has taught all it can, but more often we dismiss people too quickly, missing the gold buried in friction. Your partner isn't your enemy, your therapist, or your project. They're your professor, assigned to the unique syllabus of your becoming and the exams. Those are the moments when everything in you wants to react, but you choose instead to ask, what if this irritation is the exact gift I need to outgrow my limitations? The beauty of this mindset is its reciprocity. When you start seeing your partner as a teacher, you inevitably become one for them. Love stops being a power struggle and transforms into a dance of mutual evolution. No longer 2 broken pieces trying to fit together, but 2 whole beings growing sharper, kinder, and more alive through every interaction. That's the alchemy Stoicism offers, not just to endure love's challenges, but to let them transmute you into someone capable of a love far deeper than you'd imagined possible. There's a reason the Stoics kept skulls on their desks, not as morbid decorations, but as visceral reminders of life's impermanence. Memento Mori, remember you must die, might seem like the last philosophy you'd want to bring into love. But here's the secret: confronting mortality doesn't diminish romance, it intensifies it. Imagine standing in the grocery aisle, annoyed because your partner forgot your favorite snack again. Now imagine knowing this was the last week you'd ever share a cart. Suddenly, the forgotten item isn't a slight. It's a footnote in a story you'd give anything to keep reading. That's the alchemy of Memento Mori in relationships. It transforms petty grievances into what they've always been: distractions from the real work of loving well. History offers a haunting example in the letters of Pliny the Younger, who described his wife Calpurnia's habit of kissing his portrait whenever he traveled. Most couples would chuckle at such devotion, but Pliny saw deeper. He wrote, "She does this not out of superstition, but from love, and with the knowledge that each farewell could be our last." This wasn't paranoia, it was presence. The Stoics weren't teaching people to dwell on death, they were urging them to let that awareness sharpen their appreciation for life's ordinary miracles. Your partner's laugh echoing down the hallway, the warmth of their hand when you reach for it absent-mindedly, these aren't guaranteed. Treat them as such and watch how your priorities rearrange themselves. Practical application: try this nightly ritual. As you lie in bed, mentally fast forward to your last conversation with this person, not in a tragic sense, but with clear-eyed honesty. Would you regret nitpicking their laundry habits today? Would you wish you'd lingered longer in that morning hug? Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, "Think of yourself as dead." You have lived your life, now take what's left and live it properly. Apply that to love. If today were your last chance to show up for someone, where would your energy go? Not to winning arguments, but to stealing glances across the room. Not to keeping score, but to breaking it. This mindset also reshapes how we handle conflict. That recurring fight about your partner's lateness, viewed through Memento Mori, it becomes a question. Is this the hill I'd choose to die on? Often the answer is no. The Japanese practice kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, embodies this perfectly. The cracks aren't hidden, they're honored as part of the object's history. Stoicism asks us to see relationships similarly. Every flaw we fixate on could one day be the very thing we'd miss, the idiosyncrasies that made this love unlike any other. Even in betrayal, this philosophy offers perspective. Seneca, exiled for alleged adultery with Emperor Caligula's sister, wrote from his banishment, "What's lost is only what you've already lived." He wasn't dismissing pain, but framing it. The partner who wronged you, they're mortal too. The anger you're clutching, it has an expiration date. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse, it means weighing each grievance against life's brevity. Some wounds demand boundaries, others demand forgiveness before they fester. Memento Mori helps you discern the difference. The real magic happens in small moments. Your spouse tells the same joke for the 100th time. Pre-Stoicism, you might fake a smile. Post-Epiphany, you catch yourself thinking, "One day I'd give anything to hear this joke again." That shift from tolerance to treasure is what the Stoics were after. They knew a truth modern couples often forget. Love isn't diminished by acknowledging its end. Like a flame that burns brightest when you realize the oil is finite, relationships gain urgency, tenderness, and depth when infused with the gentle whisper of remember. So tonight, as you drift off beside someone you love, let one thought settle over you. This won't last forever. Not as a threat, but as an invitation. To touch their face like it's the first and last time, to choose wonder over irritation, to love like you're running out of time. Because in the most beautiful, heartbreaking way possible you are. The ancient Stoics practiced a radical form of gratitude that might initially sound unsettling. They regularly imagined losing the people they loved most. This exercise, called premeditatio malorum, wasn't about dwelling on tragedy. It was about waking up to the preciousness of what we too often take for granted. Picture this: you're sipping coffee across from your partner, half listening as they recount their day. Now imagine this moment is one you'll someday ache to relive. Suddenly, the way their hands gesture when excited, the crinkles by their eyes when they laugh, these mundane details become luminous. That's the power of negative visualization in love. It strips away the numbness of routine and reveals the extraordinary hiding in plain sight. But this practice goes deeper than appreciation. It reshapes how we handle conflict. When you've mentally rehearsed life without someone, minor irritations lose their edge. Their socks on the floor stop being a personal affront and become evidence they're still here to leave them. The Stoics weren't suggesting we live in fear of loss, but that we use its specter to dissolve petty resentments. Seneca wrote letters to his wife while traveling, not with generic endearments, but with vivid descriptions of what he missed. The sound of her footsteps in the morning, the way she argued passionately about philosophy. By naming these specifics, he turned absence into a lens that magnified love's ordinary miracles. Now pair this with voluntary discomfort, the Stoic practice of embracing small hardships to build resilience. Applied to relationships, this could mean intentionally navigating minor challenges together. Choose a freezing weekend to turn off the heat and huddle under blankets, not because you have to, but to remember how warmth is found in each other. Take a silent walk where communication happens only through squeezed hands or shared glances, rediscovering the intimacy beneath words. These exercises aren't romanticized suffering, they're controlled burns that strengthen your relational immune system. When real storms come, job losses, health crises, grief, you're not starting from zero. you've already proven you can find joy even when comfort withdraws. History offers a striking example in the marriage of Cotto the Younger and Marcia. When political turmoil forced them into exile, they didn't just endure poverty, they treated it as an experiment in interdependence. Cotto wrote of finding unexpected delight in shared meals of simple bread, where conversation became the main course. Modern couples might recreate this by volunteering at a homeless shelter together or taking a minimalist camping trip. The goal isn't to glorify deprivation, but to expose the truth that love's richness isn't tied to external conditions. Practical application. Try this weekly ritual. Set aside 20 minutes to write down 3 things about your partner you'd miss acutely if they were gone. Be ruthlessly specific, not just their smile, but the way their left dimple appears only when they're genuinely amused. Then share one over dinner without preface or flattery. Watch how this grounds you both in presence. For voluntary discomfort, pick one monthly challenge: cooking with only pantry leftovers, taking a cold shower together, or sleeping on the floor just because. The discomfort will fade, but the memory of laughing through it becomes glue. The brilliance of combining these practices is their synergy. Negative visualization softens your heart, while voluntary discomfort strengthens your bond. One helps you cherish the ordinary, the other prepares you to protect the extraordinary. Together, they transform love from something fragile into something forged, able to withstand life's fires because you've tested its mettle in advance. As Epictetus put it, difficulties show men what they are. In love, they show you what you're building together, not just when skies are clear, but especially when the winds howl. Marcus Aurelius had a habit of mentally ascending to the stars, not to escape earthly troubles, but to see them in their proper proportion. He called this the view from above, and it might be the most powerful perspective shift you can bring into love's heated moments. Picture this: you're mid-argument, your pulse racing over who forgot to pay the electric bill. Now, imagine pulling back like a camera, zooming out past your apartment, your city, until the entire planet shrinks to a pale blue dot. Suddenly, that unpaid bill isn't just a grievance, it's a speck on the timeline of a shared life that's already hurtling toward oblivion. This isn't about minimizing valid emotions, it's about anchoring them in something vaster than the present tension. The brilliance of this exercise lies in its physical impossibility. You can't actually levitate above your living room, but your mind can perform the equivalent, creating just enough distance to ask, will this matter in 5 years? On my deathbed, modern psychology echoes this ancient wisdom with temporal distancing, a technique that reduces emotional intensity by framing events from a future perspective. Think of it as emotional zoom. Your partner's tone during an argument feels crushing at ground level, but from 10,000 feet, it's a ripple in the ocean of your connection. Consider how this plays out in real time. She leaves dishes in the sink again. Your first impulse is to weaponize it. You never respect my space, but the view from above whispers, is this the hill our love should die on? You notice the unwashed mug isn't just a mug, it's evidence she was rushing to work after staying up late nursing your headache. Perspective doesn't erase frustration, but it filters it through gratitude. Marcus wrote in Meditations how quickly all things disappear, our bodies into the earth, memories into time. Given this, what's truly worth our anger? This practice shines brightest during seismic conflicts. Infidelity, financial betrayal, diverging life paths, these aren't trivial, but even here the cosmic view offers solace. Gazing at the night sky, you remember, empires have risen and fallen, civilizations vanished, yet love in some form has always endured. Your pain is real, but so is the truth that you'll survive it. The Stoics weren't advocating detachment from heartbreak, they were teaching resilience through context. As Marcus observed, the universe is change, life is understanding. Try this tonight. When tension flares, step outside literally or mentally. Breathe. Picture your quarrel as a single frame in a feature-length film of your relationship. Better yet, imagine an old version of yourself watching this moment from a rocking chair decades hence. What would that silver-haired sage tell you? Hold her tighter. Laugh it off. Choose the story you'll want to remember. The view from above doesn't solve problems, it dissolves the pettiness obscuring their solutions. What makes this technique uniquely Stoic is its dual focus. Yes, our lives are brief as fireflies, but that very impermanence makes every act of love sacred. Zoom out far enough and you see the truth, not that nothing matters, but that this matters most. The way you touch their hand after the fight, the jokes you'll share over burnt dinner, the silent forgiveness you offer when they're drowning in their own shame. From the stars, all of it shimmers. Epictetus once said that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them, and nowhere does this sting more sharply than in love. Think about the last time your partner did something that felt like a betrayal. Maybe they forgot an important date or seemed distracted during a heartfelt conversation. The pain felt real, undeniable, but here's the Stoic twist: the event itself was neutral. It was your interpretation, that they must not care, that you're not a priority, that transformed a simple oversight into emotional collateral damage. This isn't about dismissing legitimate hurts, it's about recognizing how often we amplify our own suffering by the stories we tell ourselves. Consider Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire while his wife Faustina faced rumors of infidelity. Instead of spiraling into public rage or private despair, he wrote in his private journal, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." He could have framed her actions as a personal affront, a humiliation. Instead, he chose to see them as external events, neither good nor bad, until he assigned meaning. That shift didn't make him a doormat, it made him sovereign over his own peace. Imagine applying this to modern relationships. Your partner comes home late from work without calling. The raw fact their arrival time was 7:45 p.m. The story you layer onto it, "they're neglecting me" or "they don't respect my time," is where the turmoil begins. The power here lies in the pause between event and reaction. Picture a glass of water knocked over at dinner. One person sees an accident, another sees carelessness, a third sees a deliberate provocation. The spilled water is the same, only the judgments differ. Epictetus trained his students to interrogate these automatic interpretations. When your partner snaps at you after a long day, ask, "Is this about me, or is it the tail end of a struggle I know nothing about?" Even in betrayals, this lens helps. Infidelity isn't good, but labeling it the end of my worth is a separate, self-inflicted wound. The Stoics would urge you to dissect the two. Practical application: try this 3-question filter when conflict arises. What exactly happened minus my assumptions? What alternate explanations exist? What meaning serves my growth rather than my pain? For example, they cancelled weekend plans. Fact, plans changed. Possible meanings: they're unreliable, painful. They're overwhelmed and need space, compassionate. Or this frees you for self-care, empowering. The event didn't change, your relationship to it did. History offers a poignant example in Zeno, founder of Stoicism. After losing everything in a shipwreck, he famously declared, "Fortune commands me to be a philosopher." He didn't pretend the loss was meaningless, but he refused to let it define him. Apply that resilience to love. A breakup isn't proof you're unlovable. It's an event that opens space for a relationship better aligned with who you're becoming. This subtle shift, from "this happened to me" to "this happened and now I choose my response," is the difference between victimhood and agency, the magic of this practice. It doesn't ask you to ignore emotions, but to question their origins. Anger at a partner's forgetfulness might mask fear of being unimportant. Jealousy over their friendship could reveal unaddressed insecurities. By stripping away the judgments, you expose the raw material of your own growth. As Marcus wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So next time love stings, don't ask, why did they do this? Ask, why does this hurt so much? The answer won't just reveal your partner, it will reveal you. And that's where the real transformation begins. We've all experienced those first flutters of infatuation, the racing heart, the obsessive thoughts, the intoxicating highs. But somewhere between the honeymoon phase and the daily grind, love often shifts from something we feel to something we must choose. This is where Stoicism parts ways with fairy tales. While modern culture sells love as a passive state, something that happens to you, the Stoics saw it as an active, daily practice. Epictetus put it bluntly, "Don't tell me how you feel, show me what you've done." Centuries later, psychology confirms this wisdom. Relationships thrive not on passion alone, but on the accumulation of small, consistent acts of care. Take the ancient Stoic ritual of katharkon duty, or appropriate action. In love, this translates to showing up even when the butterflies fade. Your partner's love language is acts of service. Filling their gas tank on a cold morning becomes a philosophical act. They value quality time. Putting your phone away during dinner isn't just polite, it's Stoicism in motion. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in his marriage to Faustina. Despite the pressures of empire, he made time for shared philosophical discussions, not because he always felt like it, but because he knew love was a garden requiring daily tending. Modern research echoes this. The Gottman Institute found that thriving couples maintain a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions, but crucially, most of those positives aren't grand gestures. They're micro moments, a warm hand on the shoulder during a stressful work call, brewing their coffee just how they like it, remembering to ask about that dentist appointment they were dreading. These aren't reflexes of emotion, they're disciplined choices. Here's where Stoicism goes deeper than modern advice. It doesn't just prescribe actions, it reframes their purpose. When Seneca wrote to his wife Paulina during his exile, he didn't merely express missing her, he detailed how her resilience inspired his own. Every small act becomes an opportunity to practice virtues, patience when they're irritable, courage when hard conversations arise, justice when dividing household labor. Love stops being something you fall into and becomes something you build, one intentional brick at a time. Consider the contrast between two couples facing routine. One relies on spontaneous romance, waiting for inspiration to strike. The other schedules weekly check-ins, divides chores fairly, and prioritizes repair after conflicts. The first is at the mercy of fleeting emotions. The second understands what Epictetus meant when he said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." This mindset transforms obligation into opportunity. That dreaded family visit isn't just a chore, it's a chance to practice kindness toward the in-laws who test your patience. Your partner's stressful work week isn't just an inconvenience, it's your arena to demonstrate loyalty through extra household effort. Even in conflict, actions speak louder than feeling. Saying "I'm sorry" matters, but changing the behavior that caused the hurt matters more. Practical application. Start with what Buddhists call right action and Stoics called virtuous deeds. Each morning, ask, what small act can I perform today to nourish this bond? It could be as simple as texting them an article they'd enjoy or taking over a task they dislike. Then at day's end, reflect, where did I choose convenience over connection? Not to self-flagellate, but to sharpen tomorrow's intent, the beautiful paradox. When you treat love as a verb, the feelings often follow. Neuroscience shows that actions rewire emotions. The more you practice kindness, the kinder you become. This is the heart of Stoic love. You don't wait to feel patient to act patiently. You act patiently until patience becomes who you are. And in that space between action and identity, love ceases to be something you lose or find. It becomes something you do, and therefore something you never truly lose. Imagine craving a perfect, flawlessly ripened peach, only to reject every actual peach for not matching the fantasy. That's what we do in relationships when we cling to holly. wood-fueled ideals of constant passion, effortless compatibility, and partners who anticipate our every need before we voice them. The Stoics called this the discipline of desire, not the eradication of longing, but the recalibration of it toward what's real and achievable. Seneca observed that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and nowhere does this ring truer than in love. The gap between what we expect and what exists isn't just disappointment's breeding ground, it's where resentment takes root. Consider the myth of the perfect partner. Ancient Stoics would have scoffed at the notion. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from wanting things to be as they are, not as we wish them to be. Apply this to dating. Swiping endlessly for someone who checks every box isn't discernment, it's delusion. Real people contradict themselves. They leave dishes in the sink but remember your childhood pet's name. They're quiet when you want chatter but shine in crises when you need rock-solid calm. The discipline of desire asks, are you rejecting a nourishing meal because you're obsessed with a menu photo? History offers a corrective in the marriage of Zeno, Stoicism's founder. His wife was no idealized muse. Ancient texts describe her as sharp-tongued and opinionated. Yet his writings reveal profound respect for how her edges honed his own character. Where modern relationships often collapse under the weight of unmet fantasies, Zeno modeled loving the actual person, flaws as teachers, quirks as compass points toward growth. This isn't settling, it's awakening to the fact that no one completes you. At best, they complement you if you stop demanding they fill every empty space. Practical application. Try this exercise. List 3 non-negotiables you've carried into relationships. Now interrogate each. That must love travel. Ideal. Does it truly matter if they prefer home-cooked meals but enthusiastically support your solo adventures? The demand for excellent communication. Could their quiet listening be a strength when your words tumble out raw? The discipline of desire isn't about lowering standards, it's about distinguishing deal breakers from fairy tales. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. His point, expecting otherwise, is what exhausts us. This mindset transforms conflicts. That argument about mismatched libidos, viewed through Stoic lenses, it becomes, is my frustration about their actual behavior or my unexamined script for how love should look? The former requires conversation, the latter requires surrendering a fantasy that was never serving you. Even attraction benefits from this rigor. Neuroscience shows that limerence, the obsessive high of new love, lasts 12 to 18 months. Stoicism prepares you for what comes after, choosing to see your partner not through dopamine's haze, but with clear-eyed appreciation for who they are while working together on who you might become. The irony, by loosening our grip on rigid ideals, we often stumble into a love richer than any fantasy. The partner who forgets anniversaries but sits up all night when you're sick. The one whose humor isn't witty but reliably dissolves your stress. These aren't consolation prizes, they're evidence that reality, when met without resistance, offers its own kind of perfection. As Epictetus put it, he who is not content with what he has would not be content with what he'd like to have. In love, that's the choice: chase phantoms or cultivate awe for the imperfect, breathing human choosing to walk beside you. The Stoics gazed at the night sky and saw more than stars. They saw threads in a vast, living tapestry connecting everything from the smallest pebble to the beating human heart. They called this sympatheia, the unshakable truth that we're all part of a single, breathing cosmos. At first glance, this might sound like abstract poetry, but apply it to love, and suddenly every irritation with your partner transforms into an opportunity to remember you're both stardust learning to dance together. When they leave toothpaste globs on the sink, that's not just carelessness. It's the same universal matter that formed mountain ranges expressing itself in messy human form. This perspective doesn't excuse thoughtlessness, it elevates patience from a virtue to a cosmic act. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Riding into battle, he'd whisper to himself, "What injures the hive injures the bee." In relationships, this means recognizing that your partner's pain is never truly separate from your own. That time they snapped after a stressful workday. That's not just their bad mood, it's the ripple effect of a boss's unreasonable demand, traffic jams, skipped meals, an entire web of causes stretching far beyond your living room. Sympatheia asks you to widen the lens. Instead of reacting to the surface behavior, you respond to the interconnected roots beneath it. Picture a couple fighting over finances. On the surface, it's about spending habits. Through the Stoic lens, two people shaped by different childhoods, economic systems, and societal pressures are trying to negotiate survival in a chaotic world. Suddenly, the argument becomes less about blame and more about collaborative problem solving. This philosophy shines brightest in conflicts where empathy feels impossible. Your partner forgets your anniversary. The easy path is to assume negligence, but sympatheia whispers, trace the thread. Maybe their parents never celebrated milestones, imprinting a different blueprint for love. Perhaps their current workload has them juggling 15 deadlines. None of this negates your hurt, but it frames their oversight as part of a larger pattern, not a targeted dismissal. The ancient Stoics would urge you to hold both truths. Your feelings matter, and their actions arise from a web of influences neither of you fully control. Now, zoom out further. Sympatheia isn't just about your partner, it's about how your relationship fits into the grand fabric. The cashier who was rude and put your partner in a sour mood. That's now part of your evening. The political tension affecting your mother-in-law's health that ripples into your shared dinners. This might sound overwhelming, but it's oddly freeing. When you stop expecting love to exist in a vacuum, you stop resenting everyday disruptions. A cancelled date isn't personal neglect, it's life's interconnectedness asserting itself. Practical application. Try this exercise during tension. Mentally step back until you see both of you as tiny figures in a sprawling landscape, products of genetics, culture, traumas, and dreams. Then ask, what invisible threads are tugging at us right now? You'll often find the real adversary isn't your partner, but the unseen forces acting upon you both. This shift doesn't erase problems, it dissolves the illusion that you're on opposing sides. The ultimate gift of sympatheia is how it expands love beyond the couple. A Stoic doesn't just love their partner, they love the world that shaped them, the teachers who inspired them, the friends who buoyed them, even the hardships that strengthened them. To love someone this way is to embrace their entire ecosystem. You're not just tolerating their annoying childhood friend, you're honoring a bond that helped them survive adolescence. You're not just enduring their family's quirks, you're glimpsing the soil where their roots grew. Here's the paradox: the more you acknowledge the forces pulling your partner in countless directions, the more present you become for the moments when your threads align perfectly. The laughter you share over burnt toast isn't just a fleeting joy, it's the universe pausing to marvel at its own fleeting, fragile creation. Two conscious fragments of itself, choosing kindness amid the chaos. That's the heart of Stoic love, not a fortress against the world, but a sacred clearing within it where, for now, two wandering stars can rest. Modern dating apps thrive on instant chemistry, the swipe right spark, the butterflies after a first date, the magnetic pull we mistake for destiny. But the Stoics would have raised an eyebrow at this cultural obsession. They'd ask a far more probing question. What good are sparks if they ignite a flame that burns out as quickly as it starts? This isn't to dismiss chemistry, it's to recognize its role as the kindling, not the foundation. The ancient Stoics built relationships on an entirely different metric: character. Virtue wasn't just a lofty ideal, it was the bedrock of lasting love. Imagine two houses, one constructed on shifting sand, dazzling with ornate decor but crumbling in the first storm, the other built on stone, its beauty revealed gradually through seasons of wear. Which would you trust to shelter you? Consider Seneca's marriage to Paulina. Historical accounts describe her as sharp-tongued and opinionated, hardly the stuff of fairy tales. Yet his letters reveal a man deeply devoted, not because she fulfilled some fantasy of the perfect wife, but because her integrity and intellect mirrored his own values. Contrast that with modern dating, where partners are often discarded at the first sign of conflict or boredom. The Stoics would argue we've confused excitement for compatibility, mistaking the adrenaline of uncertainty for the steady warmth of trust. Chemistry might get you through a candlelit dinner, but character carries you through job losses, illnesses, and the 1,000 tiny disappointments that test a bond. Here's where Stoicism flips the script. It suggests that what makes someone a good partner isn't how they make you feel, but how they consistently choose to act. Feelings fluctuate, passion wanes, annoyance flares, but virtues like patience, honesty, and resilience endure. Picture two couples facing financial stress. One, built on chemistry alone, fractures when the initial thrill fades and hardship reveals selfishness. The other, grounded in mutual respect and shared principles, uses the crisis to deepen cooperation. The Stoics called this arete excellence of character, and in love, it's the difference between a flash fire and a hearth. Practical application. Try this exercise. Next time you're drawn to someone, pause and assess not just your attraction but their actions. Do they follow through on small promises? How do they treat servers or strangers? When frustrated, do they blame or problem solve? These aren't arbitrary checkboxes. They're windows into whether this person can weather life's storms with you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. Seek partners who embody that ethos not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard." The irony, when you prioritize character, chemistry often follows, just of a different, more enduring kind. There's a quiet thrill in discovering your partner's unwavering honesty when tempted to lie, their generosity when no one's watching, their courage when standing up for you. These aren't the fireworks of infatuation, they're the steady constellations by which you navigate life together. And in the end, isn't that the kind of love worth building? Not the one that takes your breath away, but the one that helps you breathe through every challenge life brings. The Stoics believed excellence in love wasn't about grand gestures or poetic declarations. It was about embodying 4 bedrock virtues in everyday moments: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Picture these not as abstract ideals, but as practical tools shaping how you navigate conflicts, express needs, and cherish quiet togetherness. Wisdom in love begins with recognizing that no relationship exists in a vacuum. It's the interplay of 2 complex histories. When your partner reacts disproportionately to a cancelled plan, it's wisdom that pauses to ask, what old wound might this be touching? Ancient Stoics like Musonius Rufus taught that true understanding means looking beyond surface behavior to the hidden fears and desires driving it. This isn't mind reading, it's the disciplined practice of curiosity over assumption. Imagine a couple arguing about household chores. The unwise approach tallies scores and demands fairness. The Stoic alternative, wisdom asks what invisible burdens each carries: the mental load of meal planning versus the physical strain of late shifts, and seeks solutions that honor both realities. Courage in love often wears quieter disguises than we expect. It's not just standing up for your partner in a crisis, though that matters, but the daily bravery of vulnerability. Seneca wrote letters to his wife admitting his loneliness in exile, not as weakness but as an act of trust. Courage is the trembling hand that reaches across the bed after an argument instead of clinging to pride. It's setting boundaries with in-laws even when it risks disapproval, or admitting an affair to rebuild with radical honesty. History remembers Cato the Younger for his political fearlessness, but his private correspondence reveals equal valor in acknowledging his wife's influence on his growth. Modern couples mistake courage for never showing fear, when Stoicism reveals it's precisely the willingness to say "I'm scared" that forges unshakable bonds. Justice or dikaiosine in Stoic love isn't about keeping score. It's recognizing your partner as a sovereign being deserving of fairness even when inconvenient. Marcus Aurelius modeled this with Faustina, granting her autonomy over her household and intellectual pursuits in an era when women were often treated as property. Today, justice might look like dividing chores based on energy levels rather than rigid equality, or supporting a partner's career move that temporarily inconveniences you. At its core, Stoic justice asks, am I treating this person as I would a respected guest in my life? That means honoring their time, no chronic lateness, their dignity, no contemptuous tones, and their right to change, no punishing growth. When Zeno's students complained about romantic rejection, he didn't console them. He asked if they'd truly earned the love they demanded. Temperance, often misunderstood, is love's anchor. Not repression of passion, but the mastery of it. Think of temperance as the pause before sending that angry text, the restraint to listen fully before rebutting, the choice to enjoy wine without surrendering to drunken harshness. Ancient Stoics warned against premeditatio, those initial, uncontrolled surges of emotion that wreck relationships. Picture a partner forgetting your birthday. Temperance isn't pretending you're unbothered. It's the space between hurt and explosion where you ask, how can I express this wound without inflicting one? Musonius taught that temperance in physical intimacy meant neither prudish denial nor hedonistic excess, but mutual presence, loving with your whole self, not just your impulses. Together, these virtues form a latticework supporting love's weight. Wisdom knows when to speak, courage dares to be honest, justice ensures both voices matter, temperance removes the poison from disagreements. A Stoic doesn't perfect these virtues overnight, but returns to them like daily exercises, strength training for the heart. Imagine a relationship where conflicts become curiosity sessions, where vulnerability is met with protection, where both people feel freer together than alone. That's not fantasy, it's what unfolds when love becomes a practice, not just a feeling. The Stoics' genius was recognizing that the most transcendent connections are built on the most grounded choices. To understand deeply, risk bravely, give generously, and love with just enough wildness to feel alive, and just enough restraint to keep it sacred. Imagine loving someone not in spite of their flaws, but with a quiet understanding that those very imperfections are part of the contract, the fine print you willingly signed when you chose to share your life with another beautifully imperfect human. This is how a Stoic sage loves, not with gritted teeth tolerating shortcomings, but with eyes wide open to the whole messy, magnificent package. The ancient Stoics envisioned an ideal lover not as someone who never feels irritation, but as one who meets life's friction with radical acceptance, as a sculptor meets rough marble, knowing the resistance is where the art emerges. Take Marcus Aurelius' reflections on his wife Faustina. History whispers of her rumored infidelities, yet his private journals reveal no tirades, no bitter lamentations. Instead, he wrote of gratitude for her resilience, her humor, her companionship. This wasn't passive resignation, it was active reframing. He could have fixated on betrayal, but he chose to focus on the gifts her presence still offered. That's the sage secret. Love isn't blind, it simply refuses to let what's lacking overshadow what's present. Picture your partner's most annoying habit. Maybe they chew loudly or leave cupboard doors open. The untrained mind labels this as wrong. The sage asks, could this very quirk be the price of admission for their kindness, their loyalty, their irreplaceable laughter? This philosophy shines brightest in crisis. When Seneca was exiled to Corsica, separated from his beloved wife Paulina, he didn't rail against the injustice. He wrote letters celebrating how the distance clarified what truly mattered between them, not physical proximity, but the unshakable alignment of their values. Modern couples face different trials, a debilitating illness, a job loss, a child's struggle. The sage approach meet the challenge not with why us, but with what does this reveal about our capacity to endure together. A couple who loses their savings might crumble under mutual blame, or they might discover, as the Stoics did in exile, that love stripped of comforts often reveals its purest form. Gratitude is the sage oxygen. Epictetus taught that every complaint is a theft of joy, and nowhere does this theft sting more than in relationships. Consider two partners preparing dinner. One fixates on the overcooked pasta, the other marvels that after 15 years they still choose to share meals. Both see the same reality, but one views it through a lens of lack, the other through a lens of abundance. The sage cultivates what psychologists now call negative visualization, mentally subtracting their partner to fully appreciate their presence. It's not macabre, it's the antidote to taking love for granted. That laundry left on the floor, evidence someone shares your home. That argument about money, proof you're both invested in a shared future. But don't mistake this for passive doormat behavior. Stoic acceptance isn't tolerating toxicity. It's discerning between what's morally unacceptable and what's merely inconvenient. A sage wouldn't endure abuse in the name of acceptance, any more than they'd curse the sky for rain. They'd either leave the relationship or, if repair was possible, address the harm with clarity and boundaries. The key difference: emotional sovereignty. The sage loves fully without dissolving into the other, maintaining enough inner steadiness to say, "This behavior hurts me," without adding, "and therefore you're a monster." Practical application: try the sage's nightly audit. Ask, where today did I withhold acceptance? Where did I confuse preferences with needs? Maybe you snapped about socks on the floor, a preference masquerading as a necessity. Maybe you bit your tongue when a boundary was crossed, mistaking silence for virtue. The sage course corrects without self-flagellation, knowing even philosophers stumble. Ultimately, loving like a Stoic sage isn't about perfection. It's about recognizing that every relationship is a ship sailing through both calm and storm. The sage doesn't demand the sea remain still. They become the captain who adjusts the sails, tends the rudder, and finds gratitude for the voyage itself. After all, the most weathered ships often have the richest stories, and the most enduring loves aren't those without squalls, but those where both sailors learn to dance with the waves. Aristotle's ancient concept of eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or the good life, wasn't about fleeting happiness or pleasure, but about becoming the fullest, most virtuous version of oneself. The Stoics took this idea and made it relational. True fulfillment isn't found by seeking happiness from your partner, but by growing with them toward mutual excellence. Think of it as two trees planted side by side. If one strains toward the sun at the expense of the other, both end up stunted. But when each reaches upward without blocking the other's light, their roots intertwine underground, creating a stability neither could achieve alone. That's the heart of Stoic partnership, not leaning on someone to make you whole, but standing firm in your own growth while supporting theirs. Consider the difference between saying, "You make me happy and I flourish alongside you." The first places the burden of your emotional well-being on another human, an impossible weight that crushes even the strongest bonds. The second acknowledges that while love enhances life, true contentment must come from within. Marcus Aurelius modeled this with Faustina. As emperor, he could have demanded her constant attention, cloistered her away as a trophy, or blamed her for his moods. Instead, his writings reveal a man who cherished her companionship while taking full responsibility for his own peace. When storms rocked their marriage, rumors, political strife, personal losses, he didn't demand she fix his pain. He turned inward to cultivate resilience, which in turn gave her space to do the same. This isn't cold detachment, it's the foundation of the healthiest modern relationships. Psychological research confirms what the Stoics knew. Couples who practice self-determined happiness, finding joy within rather than demanding it from their partner, experience deeper, longer-lasting connections. Picture two scenarios. In the first, partner A arrives home stressed and snaps at partner B, who collapses into resentment. "If you loved me, you wouldn't treat me this way." The dynamic becomes a spiral of blame. Now imagine partner B responding with grounded compassion. I see you're struggling. I'll give you space, but let me know how I can help. The difference: one approach demands happiness as a transaction. The other offers solidarity without surrendering inner balance. Eudaimonic love also reshapes how we handle differences. Instead of seeing opposing traits as threats, why can't you be more outgoing like me? You view them as complementary strengths. Your partner's caution tempers your impulsiveness. Your spontaneity loosens their rigidity. The Stoic philosopher Cleans wrote of relationships as sympatheia, a cosmic harmony where contrasting notes create richer music. Imagine a couple where one thrives in social settings while the other recharges alone. The path of least resistance is resentment, the eudaimonic path, recognizing that these very differences allow each to grow, the introvert learning to appreciate connection, the extrovert discovering the value of stillness. Practical application starts with small shifts. Replace "you never make me feel special" with "I'm working on celebrating myself. Would you join me in this ritual?" Swap "you're always working" for "I admire your dedication. Let's carve out intentional time to reconnect." These reframes don't ignore needs. They anchor them in mutual growth rather than emotional outsourcing. The Stoics would urge you to ask daily, am I expecting my partner to fill voids only I can fill? When the answer is yes, that's your cue to tend your own garden, not as abandonment of the relationship, but as the most generous gift you can offer it. Here's the beautiful paradox: when both people take full responsibility for their own flourishing, the relationship becomes a playground rather than a hospital. Love stops being about fixing or being fixed and starts being about exploration, discovery, and shared ascent. Seneca captured this in a letter to his friend Lucilius. To be happy, you need your own soul's approval and someone to witness the unfolding. That's the essence of Stoic partnership, not two halves seeking completion, but two wholes choosing to journey onward together, each making the other's road richer by walking it side by side. Modern dating often feels like shopping with a checklist: height requirements, income brackets, Instagram aesthetics. But the Stoics would ask a radical question: what if the qualities we treat as deal breakers are the least reliable predictors of lasting love? This isn't about settling for someone you're not attracted to. It's about recognizing that attraction rooted solely in externals is like building a house on sand. The ancient Stoics practiced adiaphora, the discipline of indifference toward things outside our control, including looks, status, and other surface traits. When applied to dating, this becomes a powerful filter. Does this person's character align with my deepest values, or am I chasing a mirage of societal approval? Consider how often we confuse chemistry with compatibility. That magnetic pull toward someone with the right job or the perfect smile might feel like destiny, but Seneca warned that such attractions often lead us into golden chains, beautiful to behold but constricting over time. History offers a striking example in the marriage of Cotto the Younger and Marcia. By Roman standards, Marcia wasn't a great beauty, nor did she come from immense wealth. Yet their union was renowned for its depth and resilience because it was built on shared devotion to integrity and simplicity. While others chased political alliances through flashy marriages, Cotto chose a partner who mirrored his Stoic values, someone who could endure exile with him, not just adorn his villa. Practical application: try this exercise next time you're tempted to dismiss a potential partner for being too short, not ambitious enough, or not my usual type. Pause and ask, if this person lost their hair, their job, or their Instagram followers, would what remains still resonate with me? The goal isn't to ignore preferences, but to distinguish them from non-negotiables. You might adore how someone looks in a tailored suit, but can they also show up in emotional disarray, tear-stained and vulnerable, and still feel like home? That's where Stoic indifference becomes a superpower. It clears the noise so you can hear the heartbeat of genuine connection. This philosophy also inoculates against one of dating's biggest pitfalls, performative romance. When you stop overvaluing externals, you stop performing to attract those who value them. No more pretending to love hiking for the outdoorsy type or downplaying your intellect for someone intimidated by it. Epictetus observed, "No thing great is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen." Relationships built on shared values mature like figs, slowly, sweetly. Those built on status or lust often rot as quickly as they ripen. But here's where Stoicism surprises us. Indifference to externals doesn't mean ignoring them entirely. It means recognizing their true weight. Physical attraction matters, but it's the seasoning, not the meal. Financial stability is wise, but wealth without wisdom is a gilded cage. The Stoic approach asks you to reorder your priorities. Does their kindness nourish you more than their paycheck impresses your friends? Does their curiosity spark more joy than their cheekbones? Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire, could have married for dynastic power. Instead, he chose Faustina not for her pedigree alone, but for her philosophical depth, her resilience in hardship. Their love letters reveal a partnership where mutual growth mattered more than public perception. The real test comes when life strips away the externals, when illness alters appearances, job loss shrinks bank accounts, or age wrinkles skin. The couples who thrive are those who invested in the invisible architecture of shared purpose, humor in adversity, and mutual respect. Like Stoics who trained in hardship to appreciate life's essentials, wise daters build relationships that don't just survive storms but are fortified by them. After all, the finest libraries aren't judged by their facades but by the wisdom shelved within. Why should love be any different? Seneca once wrote to a grieving friend that what fortune has made yours is not truly yours, a piercing truth when applied to love. The Stoic art of letting go begins with this radical acceptance. Some relationships are like autumn leaves meant to fall, not because they failed, but because their season has passed. This isn't about indifference or emotional coldness. It's about recognizing when clinging becomes a form of mutual suffocation. Picture a gardener pruning a rosebush. The cut stems aren't a rejection of the plant's beauty, they're an act of care that allows for new growth. Seneca would argue that love, at its wisest, knows when to hold on and when to loosen its grip for the sake of both souls flourishing. History offers a poignant example in Seneca's own life. Exiled to Corsica by Emperor Claudius, he was forced to leave behind his wife Paulina and the life they'd built. Rather than rage against the injustice or demand she wait indefinitely, he encouraged her to remarry if his return seemed unlikely. This wasn't abandonment, it was love redefined. He prioritized her future happiness over his own possessiveness, embodying his teaching that to love is to want the other's good, even when it no longer includes you. Modern relationships could learn much from this. How many couples stay together out of habit or fear, their bond reduced to shared history rather than shared growth? The Stoic measure isn't longevity alone, but whether the relationship still elevates both people toward their best selves. Practical application starts with honest inquiry. Ask, does this connection inspire virtue or enable vice? A partnership that once fueled your courage but now fuels your anxiety isn't failing, it's signaling its completion. Seneca distinguished between bonds that lift the soul and those that chain it to stagnant waters. Consider the couple who supported each other through graduate school but now find their values diverging. The Stoic approach wouldn't demand they force reconciliation, but honor what was learned and part before resentment poisons the goodwill. This mirrors nature's wisdom. Healthy systems release what no longer serves to make room for what does. Yet letting go isn't passive resignation, it's an active practice. First, gratitude for the lessons. Even painful relationships teach us about our boundaries, our needs, our resilience. Next, release the narrative of waste. Time invested in a relationship that ends isn't lost. It's compost for future growth. Finally, trust in life's unfolding. Seneca reminded his students that nature takes back her gifts in her own time. A job transfer that separates lovers, a heartfelt disagreement about children, a simple realization that you've grown in different directions. These aren't tragedies, but natural evolutions. The deepest liberation comes when we stop framing endings as personal failures. Trees don't judge their fallen leaves, they simply prepare for spring. In matters of the heart, sometimes the bravest act of love isn't holding tighter. It's opening your hands and whispering, "Go if you must, and go well." That's the paradox Seneca uncovered. By releasing what was never truly ours to keep, we make space for connections that align with who we're becoming, not just who we were. And isn't that the highest hope, to love not just deeply, but wisely, for as long as the journey allows? Ghosting, breadcrumbing, Instagram jealousy. These aren't just modern dating frustrations, they're tests of ancient Stoic principles in digital disguise. The same philosophy that helped Marcus Aurelius rule an empire can help you navigate a world where love is swiped right and left with the same ease as ordering takeout. Consider ghosting when someone vanishes without explanation. The untrained ego spirals, "What's wrong with me?" But Epictetus would reframe it. You don't control their actions, only your interpretation. The pain isn't in the silence, it's in the story you tell yourself about it. Stoicism doesn't numb the sting, but it does offer a salve. Recognize that someone who avoids hard conversations isn't rejecting you. They're revealing their own inability to face discomfort. That's not a judgment, it's data. The digital age didn't invent avoidant behavior. It just gave it a sleek new interface. Social media jealousy is another arena where Stoicism shines. Scrolling through photos of your partner laughing with an attractive coworker, your stomach tightens. The ancient Stoics would identify this as premeditatio, those initial, involuntary flashes of emotion. The key isn't to suppress the feeling, but to interrogate it before it hardens into resentment. Ask, is my discomfort about their behavior or my insecurity? Marcus Aurelius journaled about his wife Faustina's rumored affairs, not with venom, but with sober reflection. If she chooses another, that's her exercise of free will. My peace isn't hostage to it. Modern psychology calls this differentiation. Stoics called it wisdom. When you stop conflating your partner's independent joy with a threat to your worth, you reclaim agency. Try this digital detox. For every minute spent scrutinizing their likes, spend 2 in amor fati, loving reality as it is, not as your fears distort it. Instant gratification culture poses the sharpest challenge to Stoic love. Dating apps train us to expect endless options, reducing people to disposable profiles. Seneca warned against this exact mentality. No good thing is pleasant to possess without friends to share it. Swiping through faces while craving deeper connection is like drinking salt water. It intensifies thirst. The antidote: practice ascesis, the disciplined restraint of closing apps to invest in real-world connections. Picture 2 approaches to dating. One chases the dopamine hit of new matches. The other invests in 3 quality conversations a week, valuing depth over volume. The second isn't just more stoic, it's more likely to find lasting connection. Research shows that online daters who limit sessions to 20 minutes make more intentional choices than those endlessly scrolling. Even the phenomenon of phubbing, snubbing your partner for your phone, meets its match in Stoicism. When you catch yourself reaching for your device during dinner, channel Epictetus. Why am I seeking distraction instead of presence? The digital age didn't create distraction, it magnified our avoidance of discomfort. That awkward pause in conversation isn't a void to fill with tweets. It's an invitation to lean in, to practice the Stoic art of listening beyond words. One couple's experiment went viral. They left phones in a drawer for their dates, discovering that eye contact became the ultimate notification. the deeper gift of Stoicism in the digital age. It reveals how technology doesn't change human nature, it amplifies it. Every DM is a chance to practice integrity, every notification a test of attention, every dating profile a mirror reflecting what you truly value. Seneca wrote letters across empires with the same care we reserve for texts. Marcus Aurelius composed meditations amidst political chaos as we scroll amidst endless pings. The tools evolve, but the choice remains. Will you let these platforms master you, or will you wield them with the clarity of someone who knows that love, real love, isn't found in shortcuts, but in the courageous, messy, glorious work of showing up both online and off? Marcus Aurelius and Faustina's marriage stands as one of history's most compelling Stoic love stories, not because it was perfect, but because it thrived amid imperial pressures, rumors, and personal tragedies. Ancient historians whisper Faustina's alleged infidelities, yet Marcus' private journals reveal a striking absence of bitterness. Instead, he wrote of her as his truest companion, praising her resilience during his military campaigns and her wisdom in political matters. This wasn't blind devotion, it was a masterclass in distinguishing perception from reality. While court gossip painted Faustina as promiscuous, Marcus chose to focus on her tangible virtues, her loyalty during his darkest depressions, her sharp intellect that matched his own. Their relationship teaches a powerful lesson. Love isn't about controlling narratives, but about anchoring yourself in what you know to be true. When modern couples face external judgments, whether from in-laws or social media, the Stoic response isn't to police others' opinions, but to ask, does this person's daily conduct align with the values we share? Seneca's letters to his wife Paulina reveal a different facet of Stoic love, one tested by physical separation. Exiled to Corsica by Emperor Claudius, Seneca didn't wallow in self-pity or demand Paulina's perpetual mourning. His writings, equal parts tender and philosophical, urged her to find joy independently, assuring her that true connection transcends distance. "If you remain strong," he wrote, "you are never wholly away from me." This challenges modern relationships where constant contact is mistaken for intimacy. Seneca and Paulina's bond deepened through written words exchanged across months, their love measured not by frequency of touch but by depth of understanding. In an age of read receipts and instant messaging, their story asks, could your relationship withstand silence? Could absence, rather than weakening your bond, reveal its unshakable foundations? Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, offered perhaps the most unexpected love lesson through his unconventional marriage. Ancient texts describe his wife as sharp-tongued and opinionated, traits most philosophers of the era would have scorned. Yet Zeno saw her forthrightness not as a flaw, but as a whetstone for his own character. Their heated debates on ethics and governance, rare for marriages of the time, became legendary in Athens, proving that intellectual friction can be its own form of affection. Here lies a radical idea. What if your partner's most challenging qualities are precisely what make them indispensable to your growth? The modern obsession with compatibility often seeks to smooth out all rough edges, but Zeno's marriage suggests that sometimes it's the friction that keeps the spark alive, not just romantically but spiritually and intellectually. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who insisted philosophy was meaningless if not applied to daily life, took this further with his teachings on marital equality. At a time when women were legally property, he argued that wives should be their husbands' fellow students of virtue, sharing not just households but intellectual pursuits. His own marriage modeled this. His wife participated in his lectures, a scandalous act in first-century Rome. This wasn't mere progressivism, it was practical Stoicism. How can two people cultivate wisdom together? Musonius asked, if one is treated as a subordinate. His approach transforms petty squabbles over chores into philosophical exercises. Dividing labor fairly becomes a practice of justice. Listening deeply to your partner's ideas trains humility. supporting their independent growth embodies the Stoic ideal of sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all beings. The common thread in these historical relationships, Stoic love isn't passive, it's participatory. Marcus Aurelius didn't just tolerate Faustina's rumored flaws, he actively chose to emphasize her strength. Seneca didn't simply endure exile, he used it to refine how he expressed devotion across miles. Zeno didn't stifle his wife's sharp tongue, he honored it as his teacher. These aren't tales of perfect harmony, but of conscious engagement with reality as it was not as they wished it to be. The takeaway for modern love isn't to mimic their specific dynamics, but to adopt their underlying principle. Every friction point in your relationship is an invitation to practice some Stoic virtue. Patience, courage, justice, wisdom. The ancients didn't navigate love's complexities effortlessly, they navigated them purposefully. And that's a lesson no algorithm, no dating trend, no fleeting emotion can ever eclipse. What we've explored isn't just a collection of ancient wisdom, it's a blueprint for love that endures. These 25 Stoic principles aren't isolated ideas. They're interlocking gears in a mechanism designed to weather storms, deepen connection, and transform the very way you relate to those you cherish. Think of it like building a ship. Each plank, whether it's the discipline of desire, the practice of negative visualization, or the courage to love without attachment, reinforces the hull. Alone, they're useful. Together, they create something seaworthy enough to navigate life's roughest waters without splintering. At its core, Stoic love isn't about controlling the ocean, it's about mastering your own vessel. You've seen how acceptance, amor fati, teaches you to embrace your partner's flaws as refining tools rather than deal breakers. How the dichotomy of control shifts your energy from futile demands to meaningful action. How viewing obstacles as opportunities turns conflicts into classrooms. These aren't abstract theories, they're daily practices that reshape resentment into resilience, frustration into fascination, and dependency into deep, conscious choice. But here's the secret the Stoics knew. Transformation doesn't require overhauling everything at once. Lasting change begins with focused, consistent steps. So here's your challenge for the next 7 days. Choose just 3 of these principles and apply them with intention. Maybe it's pausing before reacting to your partner's tone, asking yourself, what part of this is truly within my control? Or perhaps it's ending each day by journaling one specific thing you'd miss about them if they were gone, not as morbid fixation, but as a lens to sharpen gratitude. It could even be as simple as catching yourself when expectations creep in and whispering Seneca's reminder, what fortune has made yours is not truly yours. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Notice what happens when you stop confusing love with possession, when you trade scorekeeping for curiosity, when you meet imperfections not with size but with the question, what is this here to teach us? You won't just observe shifts in your relationship, you'll feel them in your bones. The Stoics didn't write about love to fill scrolls, they wrote to ignite revolutions in how we show up for each other. Your revolution starts now, not in some days' grand gestures, but in today's small, steadfast choices. The ship is built plank by plank, the love is built moment by moment. And the most profound transformations often begin with nothing more than a single, deliberate breath and the decision to try.